10 years ago, at the end of May 2014, a real war came to Ukraine. If the events before that had the appearance of terrorist attacks, the battles near Volnovakha and the Donetsk airport showed that the aggressor had come to Ukraine. A month and a half later, the whole world shuddered at his cruelty. As a reminder, on July 17, 2014, Malaysian Airlines Flight MH17 was shut down over the temporarily occupied Ukrainian Donetsk region. All on board, including 283 passengers and 15 crew members, were killed. Two-thirds of the victims were citizens of the Netherlands. The passenger plane was shot down by a missile fired from a Russian Buk anti-aircraft missile system. Now we know the names of war criminals involved in the first large-scale war crime in the more than 10-year-long Russian-Ukrainian war. Back then, the entire information space was filled with propaganda and lies, and it was possible to establish the truth that Russia was responsible for the downed plane only thanks to the personal courage of many people. They did it at the risk of their own lives. The investigation into MH17 began with a random photo. It was taken by the residents of Torez, who saw an unknown vehicle on the street on their hometown. In the chaos, perhaps few people would have attached much importance to the new equipment, but later this photo became one of the most important evidence of the occupiers' war crime. A year later, this incident was called a civilian feat. In 2015, journalist Yuri Butusov and advisor to the Minister of Internal Affairs Anton Gerashchenko told his story to the whole country.
On July 17, 2014, two patriots of Ukraine, residents of the city of Torez, Donetsk region, took pictures of a Russian Buk missile system while driving through the city, and immediately after the missile was launched at the Boeing. The speed of the decision made all the difference. Vitalii Kropachov, one of the active organizers of the movement and participants in the Ukrainian resistance in Donbass, received these photos and passed them on to Anton Gerashchenko. The information about the destroyed airliner was reported in the news of world agencies. Kropachev helped evacuate the authors of the photos and their cameras from the occupied territories.
The removal of both the witnesses to the Buk's presence on the territory already occupied by the Russians and the equipment used to take these photos played a key role in the trial. After all, a special examination confirmed that the photos were genuine. They made it possible to establish the location of the missile launch. These photos, along with a short video clip of the Buk being taken out of Torez, helped convince the world that only Russian aggressors were to blame for the death.
That's how we filmed the Buk, installed in the middle of Torez. At that time, no one knew what this Buk was. We took a picture and sent it to Anton. Anton didn't understand what it was at first either, but later we figured it out. After some time, he went through Torez, went to Snizhne, stood on the spot near Savur-Mohyla and made this shot, which was taken from a neighborhood in Torez, and this picture was also sent here.
But the world learned about the fatal shot later. In fact, Kropachev's role in spreading the truth about MH17s around the world cannot be overstated. He was even later honored by the Verkhovna Rada for this. But back then, in the summer of 2014, having a picture of a Russian Buk in a camera or a phone was direct threat to the lives of people who could be found by Russian militants. What was to be done with this dangerous personnel for their authors? Vitalii Kropachov, a businessman from Torez, played an important role here. He was the only person they trusted with this information. Not the least of the arguments was that he knew exactly where to send it next. Why did the authors of the Torez photo trust Kropachev? Obviously, because they knew his position about the separatists. In March 2014, pro-Russian forces launched a large-scale campaign to destabilize the situation in the Donetsk region. Most local officials and government representatives, if not playing along with the enemy, tried to wait it out. Vitalii Kropachov, who was then a member of the regional council, on the other hand, persuaded the residents of his native Torez to stop participating in pro-Russian actions. He stated his position publicly.
Stop before it's too late. I know for sure that the majority of miners don't want to hear about any secessions joining another country and other nonsense that is being diligently planted in people's minds. They are well aware of what will happen in this case. Metallurgists, power engineers, doctors, teachers and journalists are all aware of this. They are terrified at the thought of being in a country where they have no idea about freedom of speech, not to mention our intelligent and advanced youth. I also know that we are the majority, we are an intelligent and peaceful people, and we have no other options but to preserve our beloved country. Otherwise, I don't even want to say it, we will be thrown back for decades. Voters asked me to express my position. I declared clearly and unequivocally, I am for a single, indivisible country, which I love very much. I believe that we will overcome everything, cope and survive. People need peace and tranquility, decent salaries and pensions. The most important thing is the future for our children, who I am sure will be proud to live in a strong, prosperous European Ukraine.
All TV channels, websites and newspapers quoted Kropachev's official address to the residents of Donetsk region on the eve of the pseudo-referendum. On May 11th, Russia-controlled separatists held illegal votes. On the same day, Vitalii Kropachov, in his article for a local media outlet, pointed out the illegitimacy of this event, the futility of proclaiming pseudo-republics and the separatist hate speech. He drew attention to the fact that the separatist movement is represented by marginalized people and criminals. The text ended with the following words:
I am addressing those who sincerely sympathize with the so-called Donetsk People's Republic and are trying to convince themselves that this cancer is a solution to all of the problems we actually have. Do not be tempted and do not harbor illusions. Think about your children and grandchildren. Their future is in Ukraine. For the first time in more than 2 decades, the country has been given a one-in-a-lifetime chance. We have a unique opportunity to mobilize and build a strong and prosperous state. Can you be sidetracked by some marginalized people? No, never and never.
Of course, this was also a risk. After all, at that time it had already become known about repressions against Ukrainian patriots for their pro-Ukrainian position. In particular, the brutal murder of Volodymyr Rybak, who was simply defending the yellow and blue flag from crazy mercenaries, or the beating of Horlivka police chief Andrei Kryschenko. Russian mercenaries reacted immediately to Vitalii Kropachev's pro-Ukrainian statements and activities. Separatist leaders Nikolai Kozitsyn and Igor Bezler, known as Bes, sent their thugs to Torez, where they smashed and looted the businessman's office. The militants put the businessman's mother on the wanted list. It took 2.5 months to get her out of the occupied territories, thanks to the efforts of the Security Service of Ukraine. Actually, what could one expect from people who, in the first minutes of the downing of the Malaysian Boeing on July 17, 2014, ran to loot the belongings of the dead passengers and boasted about it in social media. The risk and efforts to save people and evidence of the Russian crime were not in vain. They made it possible not only to condemn Russian terrorists in The Hague, but also to change the attitude of the civilized world to the events in Ukraine. In particular, the Netherlands, which became one of the largest suppliers of military aid to our country after the start of full-scale invasion. Like many people, Vitalii Kropachev had to leave everything in 2014. His home, his well-established business, which was immediately seized by the militants. The businessman spent a lot of effort and money to get his employees, friends, acquaintances and strangers out of the occupation. He continued this practice later. He helped internally displaced people, the army and everyone who needed it. He managed to start a business again. It pays billions of hryvnias to the budget, creates jobs and supports life in the Donetsk region where large-scale hostilities are taking place. But all this stopped on May 17th. Law enforcement officers detained Vitalii Kropachov and seized his assets. He is accused of tax evasion and bankrupting the state-owned enterprise. As a result of this decision, thousands of people have lost their jobs. The budget does not receive taxes to finance the country's defense. But the customers of the case are satisfied that another business will not operate without their permission.